You attended the First Minister's meeting in Ottawa in January, where much of the discussion focused on the state of the economy, the world economy and Canada's economy. And there were two amendments made to the agreement on internal trade there, both designed to achieve greater mobility for people moving from province to take jobs. Why are those amendments important to a province like Saskatchewan?
It's a great question, and it really goes to the question we were just talking about in terms of the labor shortage that we have here in the province. It also goes to the importance, the fundamental importance of freer trade between provinces, fewer barriers to economic growth, to commerce, to trade between provinces, and to labor mobility. So here we now have provinces agreeing that they ought to recognize people trained in other jurisdictions in those in certain fields, certainly in most fields now, and I give credit to a lot of the veteran premiers, Premier Doer at the top of that list, I think, who have really led this process. So I think there's more work to be done on perhaps on some of the trade issues between provinces, but lots of progress on labor mobility so people can, it makes sense that if you are a teacher in Manitoba, that ought to be recognized in the province of Saskatchewan. I think there's an understanding that what other provinces are doing in post-secondary education and skills training is as effective as in the other province. And so there might be some nuances in certain areas of employment, but I think it's positive that we would recognize those people, and it's good for labor mobility.
You became Premier just about the time Saskatchewan was moving out of have-not status to have status as far as the Canada's equalization program goes. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering if you have a sense of whether being a have province sort of changes the dynamic when you go to First Minister's meetings.
I don't think it does. I just sense, and I'm still relatively a rookie when it comes to those meetings, but there's just a great deal of respect, I think, between the provinces and between the premiers, regardless of party politics, regardless of party stripe. I think the dynamic that changes is the one here in the province. There's a new mindset here. You know, we're proud of this. In a typical Saskatchewan way, where there's a humble self-assuredness, and there's still that modesty, that prairie modesty, but we're proud of that have province status. We want to keep it because, I think Saskatchewan people understand for a very long time the rest of the country, when we were a have-not province, the rest of the country, or at least the have provinces, were there indirectly helping Saskatchewan. Well, now we're in that position to give a little back, maybe to continue to give back, and I think it changes the dynamic here more than it does at the First Minister's table or anywhere else.
Is it refreshing to meet with Saskatchewan people and to hear that self-assuredness?
It really is. There's an energy here in this province, and it is and again, I want to emphasize there's no loss of humility or modesty. I mean, it's a cyclical economy that we're used to, so I think people in Saskatchewan know that things can change quickly. Now, there are also some signs that we can sustain this economic momentum for the long term, that some things may have changed for a much longer time than just the temporary nature of cycles and commodity prices, but there's a new attitude and an energy here, and people are excited about being in the province, and that's why we see people moving to Saskatchewan and continued economic momentum even at a time of recession.